If you're watching this video right now, I need you to pause and realize something. You are not here by accident. You are one of the special ones, handpicked by God, divinely guided to this very moment. God is shifting something deep within you, and your life is about to change in ways you never imagined. There's a version of you that's settled for less than what you prayed for, settled for less than what you deserve. But God is done watching you live below your calling. He's breaking that version of you right now, because what He's about to build in its place is stronger, bolder, freer, and destined for greater things. A divine shift is happening in your life. You may not see it fully yet, but deep down you can feel it. The old chapter is closing, and what's coming next will reveal the purpose behind every delay, every heartbreak, every no. Before we go deeper, I want you to take 3 simple steps to multiply the impact of this moment. Hit that like button so this message reaches others just like you. Subscribe to this channel and help us hit our goal of 10,000 faith-filled subscribers who are walking in purpose and power. And in the comments, type 77. That number is a signal of divine alignment and restoration. Get ready. You're not who you used to be. God is raising up a new you, one who walks in boldness, faith, and purpose. The shift has already begun. God never created you to settle. He designed you to dominate. From the very beginning of creation, mankind was not designed for mediocrity. When God formed man from the dust and breathed into him the breath of life, He didn't breathe in survival. He breathed in dominion. He didn't give man just existence. He gave him rulership. The original mandate from heaven was have dominion over the earth. That word dominion is not passive. It's not about merely getting by, enduring, or adapting to conditions. Dominion is active. It means to govern, to manage, to lead, and to expand. So how did we get from dominion to settling, from purpose to passivity? It's because somewhere along the way, life broke us in places where we stopped believing in who we were created to be. Experiences, disappointments, rejections, failures, they layered over the image of God in us like dust on a mirror, making it harder and harder to see the truth of our identity. But understand this, just because you've been through brokenness doesn't mean you are broken. Just because you've settled doesn't mean that you're home. You were made for more. Settling is not a location, it's a mindset. It's a belief that this is all I can get. This is all I'll ever be, or this is good enough. But let me ask you this. Who told you that? Who told you that this was the end of your story? Who convinced you that you were unworthy of greatness? God certainly didn't. Heaven never approved that memo. In fact, anything that causes you to live beneath your potential is a contradiction to God's original design for your life. Many of us have confused settling with contentment. There is a difference. Contentment is being at peace with God's process, knowing that He is working all things for your good. Settling is stopping short of what God promised. Contentment trusts the journey. Settling forfeits the destination. One is fueled by faith, the other by fear. God is now confronting the version of you that you became out of survival. The one that accepted less so you wouldn't be rejected. The one that stayed quiet so you wouldn't be hurt again. The one that abandoned dreams because they didn't happen on your timeline. He's confronting the you that you built around disappointments, not destiny. Because that version of you cannot carry what He is about to release. That version of you was necessary for a season, but it's not sustainable for the assignment. And so He's breaking it. Breaking hurts, but is holy. Breaking feels like loss, but is actually alignment. You are not being punished, you are being repositioned. The pain you feel is not destruction, it's construction. God is tearing down what was built on fear, on shame, on people's opinions, and on your own limited view of yourself. He is stripping away everything that made you settle so He can awaken everything that will make you rise. You were created to be fruitful, to multiply, to replenish the earth, to subdue it, and to have dominion. That was the blessing given to humanity before sin ever entered the picture. Dominion is your default. Settling is a malfunction of purpose. And so now God is pressing a divine reset, not to bring you back to where you were, but to bring you into who you really are. You are royalty. You are a solution. You are a carrier of divine ideas. The world doesn't benefit from a watered-down version of you. The people connected to your assignment are waiting for the real you, the you that dominates in excellence, in creativity, in leadership, and in purpose. But that version only emerges when you stop settling. So if your life feels like it's being shaken, don't curse the shaking. Thank God for it. Because what's shaking is what was never supposed to stay. God is breaking the false identity, the limiting beliefs, the complacency, and the compromise. He's reminding you of your original factory settings, dominion. And He won't stop until the version of you that's settled is fully replaced by the version of you that soars. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to stand out. You were never meant to maintain. You were born to multiply. Stop settling. It's time to rise. It's time to rule. It's time to become everything God knew you to be before you were even formed in your mother's womb. You were designed to dominate. The enemy of your best is not your worst, it's comfort. Most people think the greatest threat to their future is failure, fear, or even sin, but it's not. The most dangerous place for destiny is not rock bottom, it's the middle ground, where nothing is really wrong, but nothing is truly right either. That space where you're doing okay, surviving, paying the bills, keeping up appearances, but deep down, you know you're living beneath your potential. That place is called comfort, and it's a silent thief. Comfort doesn't look like an enemy. In fact, it looks like a reward. It tells you you've done enough. Take it easy. Don't push too hard. Don't expect too much. It's subtle. It makes you settle for what's familiar rather than pursue what's possible. Comfort doesn't attack you. It seduces you. It wraps itself around you like a warm blanket and whispers, "Stay here, it's safe." But what's safe to the flesh is often a threat to your purpose. God never called you to comfort. He called you to purpose. And purpose is never found in a place where nothing grows. In fact, your purpose is usually hidden behind discomfort, stretching, and challenge. Look at any person in Scripture who stepped into divine assignment, and you'll find someone who had to leave the comfort zone. Abraham had to leave his father's house. Moses had to go back to Egypt. David had to leave the field and face a giant. Jesus had to leave heaven and enter humanity. Purpose always requires movement. And movement requires leaving comfort behind. You don't need to be rescued from your worst. Sometimes you need to be delivered from what's just good enough. Because good enough is the most deceptive form of bondage. It keeps you from seeking the exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or think that God promises. It's not that you're doing something wrong, it's that you stopped doing what's right. With the same passion you once had, you stopped believing for more, you stopped stretching, you stopped dreaming. You got used to average, and average became acceptable. But God didn't wire you for average. He didn't gift you with potential just so you could manage it. He gave it to you so you could multiply it. And the tragedy of comfort is that it convinces you that you can honor God without maximizing what He gave you. But that's not stewardship. That's stagnation. And stagnation is the slow death of destiny. Comfort creates a life that's predictable, and predictability creates control. But the walk of faith is not about control, it's about surrender. And you can't be fully surrendered and fully in control at the same time. That's why comfort is so dangerous. It keeps you in control and calls it wisdom. But many people disguise fear as wisdom and call it being realistic. They settle for less because dreaming again would require vulnerability. Trying again would risk disappointment. Believing again would mean they have to confront the pain of the last time. So instead they choose comfort and wonder why they feel unfulfilled. The truth is, God will often disturb your comfort to develop your calling. He'll shake up the areas you thought were stable, not because he's cruel, but because he knows you're capable of more. He knows you were born for impact, not survival. He knows what he placed inside of you is not being fully used where you are. So he provokes your peace, not to punish you, but to promote you. Growth never happens in comfort. In fact, real growth often begins when you feel stretched beyond your limits, when your faith is tested, when your vision is bigger than your resources, when your calling requires more than what you currently have. That's when you know you're in the right place, because you've stepped out of what you can do and into what only God can do through you. The enemy of your best is not failure. Failure teaches, failure refines, failure prepares, but comfort paralyzes. It makes you stay still in the name of safety. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your life maintaining a version of you that's familiar while ignoring the version of you that is faithful. The one God intended, the one that doesn't settle, the one that keeps growing. So let this be a wake-up call. If you've been feeling unchallenged, unbothered, or uninspired, don't ignore that feeling. That's not depression. That's your spirit rejecting the cage of comfort. That's your destiny reminding you that you were made for more. You weren't born to get by. You weren't created to just make a living. You were sent here to make a difference. Shake off comfort. Confront your calling. Step into more. Because your best isn't behind you. It's waiting on the other side of your comfort zone. What you tolerate becomes your identity. It's a simple phrase, but it carries the weight of truth that can redefine your entire life. You may think that allowing certain behaviors, environments, thoughts, or people into your space is harmless, something you can manage or ignore. But over time, what you allow begins to shape who you are. What starts as a decision to just deal with it for now slowly becomes the new normal, and before long, it becomes your identity. We are not just shaped by what we actively choose, we are shaped by what we silently accept. When you tolerate disrespect, you begin to live as though you are undeserving of honor. When you tolerate fear, you begin to live as though fear is your master. When you tolerate mediocrity, you begin to live as though excellence was never part of your design. Toleration isn't passive, it's an agreement. Every time you allow something to remain in your life that contradicts your purpose, you're signing a silent contract that says, I give you permission to stay. And over time, that thing doesn't just stay, it starts to define you. That's why God is so intentional about boundaries, standards, and truth. He doesn't call you to righteousness, excellence, and boldness just to control you. He calls you to those things because they protect your identity. You can't walk in divine purpose and tolerate dysfunction at the same time. One will cancel out the other. And slowly, if you're not careful, the dysfunction you refuse to confront will start wearing your name. You were born with divine intention. You were made in the image of God. You were formed with greatness encoded in your DNA. But the enemy of your soul is not always trying to destroy you directly. Sometimes he just wants you to lower your standards. Because he knows if he can't stop your calling, he can at least weaken your character. And once your character starts to shift, your identity follows. Think about how people fall into cycles. Nobody plans to become bitter, insecure, stagnant, or hopeless. But when they tolerate a little compromise, a little fear, a little laziness, it multiplies. What you let live in your life, you start to live like. If you constantly tolerate negativity in your environment, you'll begin to think negatively. If you tolerate people who drain you, use you, and disrespect your boundaries, you will begin to see yourself as someone who deserves to be used. That's why God allows discomfort in the areas you've been tolerating. He won't let you make a home in what he never called permanent. Sometimes what feels like life falling apart is actually your false identity being stripped away. The one you built around survival instead of purpose. You tolerated small thinking, so he confronts your vision. You tolerated toxic relationships, so he causes separation. You tolerated complacency, so he stirs up a holy discontent. Why? Because he loves you too much to let you live a lie. Your true identity is tied to what you refuse to accept, refuse to settle, refuse to be silenced, refuse to remain in environments that shrink you, refuse to let fear have the final say. Every time you take a stand against what doesn't belong, you are reclaiming your identity. Every time you say no to what used to enslave you, you say yes to the person you were born to be. You must examine your life and ask, what have I tolerated that God never approved? What attitudes, habits, or relationships have I let stay because confronting them felt uncomfortable? Sometimes we tolerate things not because we're okay with them, but because we've grown too tired to fight. But here's the truth. Whatever you don't confront will eventually conform you. And the longer you stay in agreement with what doesn't reflect your calling, the harder it becomes to recognize yourself. God is calling you higher. That means he's also calling you to examine everything you've made peace with that has been robbing your potential. He wants you to wake up to the fact that toleration is not neutral, it's transformational. Either it transforms you into who you're not meant to be, or you rise up and become who you were always meant to be. Don't let comfort, fear, or fatigue write your story. Don't let tolerated dysfunction become your testimony. You are more than what you've accepted. You are greater than what you've adapted to. Break the agreement. Refuse the lie. Reclaim your identity, because you don't become what you desire. You become what you tolerate. Breaking is not punishment, it's preparation. That simple truth can change your entire perspective on pain, discomfort, and disruption. Too often, when life begins to fall apart, we assume we did something wrong. We believe God is angry, distant, or disciplining us in a way that feels harsh and unfair. But the truth is, what feels like breaking is often heaven's way of preparing you for what's next. You're not being destroyed, you're being developed. There is a version of you that you've outgrown, a mindset that no longer serves your assignment, a pattern of living that can't go with you into your next season. And so God begins to break what no longer aligns with who you're becoming, not to harm you, but to make room for what's greater. Just like a seed must break before it can grow into a tree, you too must go through the breaking before the blooming. When God breaks you, it's never random, it's targeted, it's intentional. He sees what's hidden, the pride you didn't notice, the insecurity you buried, the fear you masked as caution, the relationships that have expired but are still being held on to. He breaks what you're leaning on so you can learn to lean on Him. He breaks what you've idolized so you can focus on what's eternal. He breaks your routine so you can rediscover your purpose, not as a punishment, but as preparation. If God left everything the way it was, you'd stay the way you are. Comfort would become your ceiling. You'd never pray like you need to, you'd never fast like you hunger to, and you'd never chase destiny with urgency. But breaking awakens something in you. It strips away the distractions. It exposes the weak foundations. It forces you to reevaluate, to reflect, to let go. And in that space, God rebuilds. There are things that can only be taught in the breaking. You can learn joy in the blessing, but you learn endurance in the breaking. You can learn strategy in success, but you learn surrender in the breaking. You can learn how to handle a platform in the spotlight, but you learn how to carry power in the secret place. The place where things are being broken, reshaped, and refined. Some of the greatest transformations in Scripture happened after a breaking. Jacob wrestled with God and walked away limping, but he also walked away with a new name. Peter was broken by his denial of Jesus, but he was restored and became the rock on which the early church was built. Jesus himself was broken, his body bruised, his spirit crushed. But it was through his breaking that the door to redemption was opened for the entire world. So don't despise your breaking season. Don't rush it. Don't curse it. Lean into it. Ask God, what are you trying to develop in me? What are you removing from me? What are you preparing me for? Because once you understand that breaking is a sign that something greater is coming, you stop resisting it and start responding to it with faith. Preparation doesn't always look like promotion. Sometimes it looks like isolation. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like losing people, places, and things you thought you couldn't live without. But God is not preparing you for the next blessing. He's preparing you to handle the next blessing. That's a big difference. Anyone can receive favor, but not everyone can carry it. So God breaks you now so you don't break later under the weight of what He's about to give you. The breaking is sacred. It's where oil is pressed. It's where purpose is purified. It's where God takes your pieces and begins to reshape you into someone you didn't even know you could become. You may not see it now, but there is glory in the breaking. There is transformation in the tension. There is purpose in the pain. And there is promotion on the other side of this process. You are not being broken because you are weak. You are being broken because you are strong enough to be trusted with more. And God trusts you enough to prepare you the right way, so let Him finish the process. Let Him prune. Let Him refine. Because when it's over, you won't just be restored, you'll be reborn. And the version of you that emerges will be the one that's ready to walk boldly into destiny. Remember, breaking is not punishment, it's preparation for greatness. Destiny demands disruption. It's a truth many people avoid, but one that can't be escaped if you're serious about becoming who you were created to be. We often ask God for purpose, calling, and breakthrough, but we don't always realize that these things don't arrive wrapped in ease and convenience. They come packaged in disruption. Destiny never enters a life quietly. It shakes things, shifts things, and demands that the old make room for the new. When God is calling you higher, He won't allow you to stay where you are, and He certainly won't let you stay who you are. The calling on your life disrupts your comfort, your schedule, your plans, and often your relationships. Why? Because destiny requires transformation. You cannot walk into divine purpose with yesterday's mindset. You can't carry new wine in old wineskins. You can't fulfill your next level assignment with a first level perspective. Something has to break. Something has to be interrupted. This is why many people pray for change but resist the process that brings it. They want to be used by God, but they want to stay in control. They want expansion, but without the stretching. But destiny will never fit within the confines of your comfort zone. It was never meant to. In fact, one of the clearest signs that God is leading you into something greater is that everything around you starts to feel unsettled. The job that once satisfied you now feels too small. The relationships that once felt necessary now feel distracting. The routine that once brought peace now feels like prison. That's not coincidence. That's disruption. Disruption is God's way of shifting you from maintenance to movement. It interrupts your regular flow and forces you to reconsider what really matters. Sometimes it comes as a crisis. Sometimes it comes as divine dissatisfaction. Sometimes it shows up as doors closing, connections breaking, or things no longer working like they used to. At first it feels like loss, but it's actually divine alignment. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. Look through Scripture and you'll see that every person who walked in divine destiny had to experience disruption. Noah was disrupted by an assignment to build something for a future no one had seen. Abraham was disrupted by a command to leave everything familiar. Joseph's life was disrupted by betrayal, prison, and delay, all leading him to the palace. Moses was disrupted by a burning bush that pulled him out of hiding and into purpose. And even Jesus disrupted systems, traditions, and expectations because destiny always challenges the status quo. God doesn't disrupt your life to bring chaos. He disrupts it to bring clarity. Disruption reveals what's no longer serving your future. It removes crutches, exposes idols, and purifies motives. It's in the disruption that you learn what you really believe, what you really value, and what you're truly made of. And most importantly, it's in the disruption that you hear God with new clarity. Because when everything else is shaken, his voice becomes the only stable thing left. But here's the truth. Not everyone can handle your disruption. When God begins to shift you, some people will try to pull you back into who you used to be. They were comfortable with the version of you that didn't require change, that didn't challenge their own complacency. But you can't carry their comfort and your calling at the same time. At some point, you must decide, will I stay where it's safe, or will I follow God into the unknown? Destiny requires boldness. It demands that you leave behind the familiar to pursue the eternal. It asks you to trust what you can't yet see and move even when you don't fully understand. That's the nature of purpose. It calls you out before you feel ready, and it develops you as you go. But once you surrender to the disruption, you begin to see that everything God removed was only making space for something better. Every delay, every denial, every detour, it all becomes part of the design. So if your life feels unsettled right now, if things are shifting, shaking, or falling apart, don't panic. Don't fight it. Lean into it. Ask God what he's doing in the disruption. Because destiny doesn't come in a whisper. It comes in a wind. It moves through storms, through closed doors, through unexpected changes. And if you trust him in the disruption, he will lead you into something greater than you imagine. You weren't created to live a life that looks like everyone else's. You were created to live a life marked by heaven, powered by purpose, and driven by divine destiny. But to get there, disruption is not optional, it's necessary. Destiny demands it. You're not being broken to be less, you're being broken to become more. That's a truth we often resist, especially in moments of pain, disappointment, and transition. When life starts to fall apart, when doors close, when people walk away, or when dreams seem to slip through your fingers, it's easy to assume that something is wrong with you, that you're being punished, reduced, or forgotten. But what if the breaking isn't the end of you? What if it's the process that brings you into the fullness of who you were born to be? Brokenness is never random in the hands of God. He is too wise to waste your pain and too intentional to break you without purpose. What feels like a setback is often a setup for transformation. What seems like loss is often divine clearing. God will break what you've built if it's too small for where he's taking you. He will break your rhythm, your plans, your expectations, not to leave you empty, but to make space for more. You see, there are parts of you that cannot carry the weight of your next season. There are attitudes, attachments, and ways of thinking that worked in the past, but will crush you in the future. So God breaks the version of you that was built for survival, so he can reveal the version of you that's built for purpose. He breaks the shell so the seed can grow. He breaks the box so the gift can breathe. He breaks the comfort so the calling can be birthed. The problem is we often interpret breaking as rejection. We think God is taking something from us when in fact he is preparing to release something through us. We cry over the pieces, not realizing that broken pieces in the hands of God are the beginning of multiplication. Remember the 5 loaves and 2 fish. They weren't multiplied when they were whole. They were multiplied after they were broken. And in the same way, your brokenness is not a sign of weakness. It's the moment when your potential begins to expand beyond what you thought was possible. You were never meant to remain in the same form. You were designed to grow, to evolve, to ascend. But growth is painful. Transformation is uncomfortable. You cannot become more while clinging to the lesser version of yourself. Something has to give. Something has to be broken. But not all breaking is violent. Some breaking is surgical. God is not reckless with your heart. He is precise. He knows exactly where to cut, what to remove, and how to heal. He is the potter, and you are the clay. And when the vessel becomes cracked or flawed, he doesn't throw it away. He reshapes it. He begins again, not because it's worthless, but because it's too valuable to leave in its broken state. That's what he's doing with you. The breaking you're experiencing is not about making you less. It's about revealing the more that's been hidden inside you all along. This breaking is introducing you to deeper purpose. You thought you knew who you were, but this breaking is showing you another level. You thought you knew who you were, but this breaking is introducing you to deeper purpose. You thought you needed certain people, certain systems, certain plans. But God is using the breaking to show you that what He's placed in you is more than enough. And here's the beauty. When God breaks you, He also blesses you. He does not leave you in pieces. He does not abandon you in transition. He walks with you through the breaking, and He rebuilds you with a strength you never had before. You come out wiser, stronger, clearer, more focused, more humble, more anointed. You come out not just restored, but transformed. So don't despise the breaking. Don't curse the process. Don't judge the journey too early. You are not being broken to shrink, to suffer, or to be forgotten. You are being broken to expand, to awaken, and to rise. God is not reducing you. He's refining you. He's stretching your capacity and preparing you for more than you imagine. Hold on. Trust the potter. The breaking is not the end. It's the beginning of more.